A few years ago, I was sent the Umbrel Home, a tiny device to make self-hosting easy for the average user. I actually never made a video on it because, well, it wasn't very good. The hardware wasn't powerful enough to justify the cost, and the cost wasn't cheap enough to justify the mediocre software. Hell, it didn't even have an HDMI port. I figured this was just a flash in the pan, but fast forward to today, and I have the new and improved Umbrel Pro. It's still designed to make self-hosting accessible for the average user, but did they actually fix all the issues from before? Well, I think so. Let's talk about it. I actually ended up giving my Umbrel Home to my buddy who's been using it as a Minecraft server for his kids, so it's not completely worthless, but yeah. All right off the bat, you know how we do things. Here are the specs and the price. For $700, you get a mini PC with an 8-core Intel N300, 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM, 64 gigabytes of eMMC storage, 4 NVMe slots at PCI Gen 3x2 speed, 2.5 gig networking, and yes, an HDMI port. Right away, let's address the elephant in the room. You can get a machine with much better specs for $700. We all know that. Here's the thing though, a lot of people care about things outside of the raw specs like the build quality or aesthetics and the software. Now for $700, those things need to be very good to justify that price tag, and when it comes to build quality, I mean, it's actually really good. It's a solid aluminum frame contoured by a band of actual walnut, so you get this super modern look. Some of you don't give a shit, but I'm all for appreciating a nice design. Speaking of nice design, they actually made it really easy to access the NVMe slots with a magnetic panel and these thumb screws so that you don't need a tiny screwdriver. But like, there's nothing wrong with tiny screwdrivers, okay? They do the same thing that the bigger screwdrivers do, and some women, I mean, people don't even like the bigger screwdriver. The bottom panel actually has this huge thermal pad on it, which lets the drives dissipate heat through the aluminum chassis. And while the magnetic cover is cool, there is a slight amount of play to it, which I mean isn't a big deal, but I would like to see a tighter tolerance. And I guess before we get into the software, we need to mention all the ports. It's got a barrel jack for power, single 2.5 gig port, HDMI 2.1, dual 10 gig USB-C ports, and I mean, that sounds good, right? I think so. For this price, I'd probably like to see either dual 2.5 gig or 10 gig networking, or possibly Oculink. So at this point, we have what I would consider like $400 worth of actual performance hardware. You could argue that the sleek design and the wood grain would be worth another $100, maybe. So to reach that $700 of value, we need to find out if the convenience of the software is worth $200. Now, let me start out by saying that I was fully expecting the software to be kinda butt cheeks like it was before, but that isn't the case, like at all. They redid everything and actually made Umbrel OS an awesome all-in-one self-hosting operating system that is simple enough for the novice users to use, but enough features to please the power users. When you load it up for the first time, it'll have you set up your storage, and by default, it sets it up in a RAID Z1 config. Oh yeah, it uses ZFS by the way. But you only have two options here, striped or RAID Z1. So basically resiliency or no resiliency. For your average user, I think this is perfect. Like, sure, striped mirrors is the best of both worlds, but for most people buying this, they're probably just going to use RAID Z1 and be happy about it. From there, you're ushered into the dashboard, which looks like a modern self-hosted OS dashboard, I guess. You can change your wallpaper in the settings, which in turn changes the color theme of the entire OS, which I think is pretty clean. You'll notice throughout this software section that the Umbrel team put in a ton of effort into this, and while it's not perfect, it does do a lot of things right. First thing we need to take a look at is file sharing, since a lot of people will want to use this as a NAS of sorts. Luckily, it's super easy. Setting up a file share is as easy as going to the settings, clicking configure next to the file sharing, and selecting the folder that you want to share. It'll then tell you how to access that via SMB on all your other systems. A few things to note here. You only get SMB, you only get a single user, and the password is generated for you for security reasons. For simplicity, I think this is great. For power users who want different accounts with different permissions, not so much. This is where you need to decide if Umbrel OS is for you, because there are going to be other situations like this where you can tell it's obviously designed to be for more novice users, and certain features may be omitted in the name of simplicity. In terms of performance, in regular old disk speed tests, we pretty much saturated that 2.5 gig network port, which is expected with NVMe drives. The other important feature for NAS users is backups. Again, a really well thought out solution here. You can turn on backups and select a destination from an external drive, another NAS, or their private cloud. Kinda. This isn't out yet, so I'm curious to see what they come up with. I actually filled out their survey, so maybe I'll have some info by the time this video goes live. If I do, maybe it's here or something. I decided to go with another NAS and use my main TrueNAS server, and I just created an Umbrel folder over there. I could then select which folders to exclude from the backup, and they even had some automatic ones from other apps that wouldn't be necessary. Nice touch there. I would maybe like to see the ability to set wildcards and file extensions, but from a pure ease of use approach, I think this is great. And after I made the selection, the backup started. That's it, just source and destination. Now, you're probably wondering where you set the schedule, and well, you don't. It runs every hour and will save hourly backups for the last day, daily backups for the past week, weekly backups for the past month, and monthly backups for the past year. Everything older than a year gets deleted, and I kind of wish they had a checkbox like keep my data indefinitely or something like that, which would keep a yearly backup forever. In my brief testing, this worked great though, and the other half of a backup system is being able to restore it, which they call rewind. It's basically a way to browse through your snapshots, because essentially that's what they are, but I really like the interface for it. You can scroll through all your snapshots, browse through them, and restore any files or folders you need. It would be cool if there was a restore all button, but I guess you could just select the main root directory. I don't know. But anyway, really cool UI, really simple quality stuff. So as an NAS, I like it. I like it a lot. And if they come through with a solid option for their cloud backup and make a few tweaks to the backup retention and restoration, and possibly add a way to notify you on failure, I'd be hard pressed to show you a better option for most people out there. All right, so the other reason people would buy something like this is for self-hosting apps, which means that they have to make deploying apps just as easy as setting up storage, and well, it is. You legit just click a button. That's it. No configuration, no advanced section. Every single app is a single button click like you're on an iPhone. I know so many of people are thinking what I was initially thinking. Okay, but what if I want to adjust the storage or the network port or the resources? I get it. As someone who typically deploys my Docker apps via modified Docker Compose files, I usually want that flexibility. Here is the counter argument though. The App Store isn't designed for that. The App Store is for people who want that iPhone-like experience of a single button to install it, and that actually works pretty well. For those of you turbo nerds like myself, you do have the option of flexibility though. Since everything is running via Docker, you can actually just go to the App Store and download an orchestrator like Dockage or Portainer. Personally, I'm a Portainer boy, but these will allow you that flexibility that you so desire, or just do everything in the CLI like a true neckbeard. One thing I really like here is that even when you install apps through the App Store, you have direct access to the storage via the file browser. Like they give you a little section for each app that lets you browse around in there, and I love this. So many other operating systems make it such a pain to even find out where they keep your application data. Umbrel OS is like, hey, here it is, like right here. There's even a little icon. Alrighty, I think it's about that time. Let's talk performance. We already know this is designed to be a low power system and the specs aren't going to blow you away, but is it enough? I immediately saw that they had OLAM available for download and thought, no way will this actually run, since there's no dedicated VRAM for models and all the inference would have to be done by the CPU. I tried it out with a super tiny model, Llama 3.2 1B, and it runs pretty okay. Obviously, it's going to ping your CPU, but it's actually usable with a response of 3.67 tokens per second. Like, not great, but you can run some LLMs on here. I think where this will shine, though, is as a media server. We all know that Intel's integrated graphics with QuickSync shreds through some media, and combined with a low power envelope, I think we have a winner here. I tried out Jellyfin and got to the part to create a media library and realized I didn't have any media, so I copied some over from my main server. I will say that I really like the UI for displaying file transfers. I don't know why, but the UI vibes of this entire operating system are just on point. However, I do have a bit of a complaint with the media server apps. I started with Jellyfin because I know you jabronis love to hate on Plex, and there weren't any issues getting the app up and running, but it wasn't clear at all where the media should go. I assumed they would have mapped a media folder to my videos folder on the Umbrel, but that's not the case. I actually had to go and look at the Docker Compose file to see what binding mounts it was using. They just had ones for config and downloads, so I made a folder in the config for media and put them there. Not very intuitive. I actually passed this on to the Umbrel team, and they mentioned that this is because if you use the full R stack to download media 100% legally, then that would default to using that download location, which is where your Jellyfin would pick them up. Anyway, I got my library set up and tried it out, and it worked. Kind of. Like, I could play back Dune in 4K, but it's HEVC 10 bits, so it didn't want to use my hardware transcoding, which falls back on the CPU, so tons of CPU usage. I switched to 22 Jump Street, which was just H.264, and direct playback worked fine. But then I tried to play back in a different bitrate to force it to use hardware transcoding, and still nothing. For some reason, Jellyfin doesn't want to use hardware transcoding on this deployment. I was wondering though if I would get the same issue in Plex, and nope, it uses hardware transcoding straight out of the box and had no issues with either movie. Anyway, using Plex was perfectly fine with the hardware transcoding, and we weren't seeing very much power usage at all, like 7 watts, which is actually insane. Now, let's wrap up the software review with some miscellaneous items. I didn't cover much of the networking stuff because there really isn't much, but apparently there's some stuff coming in version 1.7, so we'll see. I did try the remote connection through Tor browser, but that didn't work. It could totally just be because I'm an idiot since I've never used Tor browser, and after about 5 minutes of trying, I just gave up. Realistically, you're probably just going to install Tailscale through the App Store and use that because, like, why wouldn't you? It's the easiest way to securely access all your devices no matter where you are. And a couple of you are probably wondering if you can do away with Umbrel OS and just install whatever operating system you want on here. And yes, you can, which is a good thing. Not because I think Umbrel OS is bad, but because if it stops being supported, you aren't left with a paperweight. Now, maybe you saw my Umbrel OS walkthrough and thought,
man, Brent, you're so right. That is pretty neat. I want to try it out on my own hardware, though.
Good news, you can do that too. Just head over to the GitHub and follow the instructions, which is pretty much just the same as any other operating system. Create a bootable USB drive with the ISO and install it. So, what's the verdict here? Honestly, it's tough. Like, actually, because I want to recommend it so bad. But this is a hard sell for $700. If you're fine with a bit less processing power and 4 GB less of RAM, then you can get a Beelink ME Mini for $300 cheaper, and that has 6 NVMe slots and dual 2.5 gig. Do I think $700 is a crazy price though? Like, if you're someone who wants a small, silent machine to do some self-hosting, and you're fine with paying for a plug-and-play solution with a premium feel, $700 may be fine for you. Then you have to remember you're putting NVMe drives in here, so no hitting up eBay for cheap hard drives. But even with how sleek and sexy this device is, the highlight to me was the software. Like I mentioned, it's not perfect, but the UI is so clean, everything feels simple, snappy, and intuitive, and it just does everything you need to right out of the box. This may be a hot take, but I think Umbrel OS is kind of what Casa/Zima OS wanted to be. And the Umbrel team has shown that they are very receptive to feedback considering they redid their entire operating system, so I'm hoping they build off of this and continue to make it better, because if they do, this may be my new go-to suggestion for people just getting into self-hosting. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. That's all for this one. If you liked it, then drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more self-hosted content. I'll give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and my Patreons. You guys are my self-hosting operating system that's easy, fast, sexy, delicious. What are we talking about again? Y'all are the best. And if you're still watching, you're NFS. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.